I didn't want to make a video because I was inspired by my YouTube friend JC Demi. I just made a video about a villain that she really likes villains. She does villain fan vids and villain crossover stories, fan fictions, and things like that. Um, so I was inspired by her. We've been friends in real life. We've been friends for a very long time, but we kind of lost touch a little bit there. So I'm catching up on some of her recent works, and so I that's why I'm now responding. Um, but I just did a video. I was gonna do a little villain highlight, and I touched just on Phantom of the Opera, and then I was gonna do an hour long um, character study of Sirius Black from the Harry Potter series because that's actually who I was inspired because I was like, I don't know if I could even talk for an hour and a half on one character, and she does do like she does kind of segue into other things and you know side plots during some of her videos too, but I was like, I don't even know if I could do that. I've never tried doing that about a fictional character, and it's been so long, so I was like, maybe not. I don't know. I wanted to try it, and then I ended up doing it about Fan of the Opera when the whole time I had already been planning on doing one for Sirius Black. So we're gonna try the Sirius Black character, his plot, his story. And I will say, I actually don't remember some of the details. I was a very large Harry Potter fan, um, but like a casual large Harry Potter fan, I guess you could say. Like we read all of the books as a family when they came out. Like we would go to the midnight releases of the books, and then we'd have like 2 or 3 copies in the house, and all of us girls would read them, and then the parents would read them after we got through them, and so we all knew the Harry Potter series, and we went to see the movies in theaters, and we went to the midnight releases of the movies in theaters, and um, I made some fan gear for my sister. She is actually the big Harry Potter fan. She is the big Harry Potter fan in the house. So she boasts. I've read the first Harry Potter book 26 times, and that was like 10 years ago. So, and I've most of them I've only read like once. And same with the movies. I have only seen most of them probably once or twice. So I know we watched a lot of the first ones when we were younger, because the actors were around our age, and so it was kind of fun. But that, as we became adults, and um, our lives kind of diverged a little bit more. But it was very much a part of our childhood, reading the books and tracking when they would come out. And I read some fan fiction when I was in my teenage years, and it was Marauder era fan fiction, and it was delight, but that's relevant to the story because James Potter is Harry Potter's father, and James Potter is the one of the main crew of the Marauders, who are a gang of 4 characters, 4 friends in Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and the 4 Marauders are Harry Potter's father, James Potter. We've got Sirius Black, we've got Remus Lupin, and we have Peter Pettigrew. And so there are 4 characters, 4 Marauders, and they're all best friends going through school. They all learn to become animagi, where it's a complex magical spell where they can turn into animals, except for Remus. Remus is actually a werewolf. Which is why they needed to become animagi to begin with. They needed to become animals because they wanted to be with their friend when he was a werewolf. They wanted to run with him as a wolf and curb his appetites and kind of take care of him, make sure that he didn't wolf out and hurt anyone or hurt himself. And so they wanted to adopt these animal forms in order to be with him in his hardships. And so they learned how to turn themselves into animals. And so I guess we can go go into it. James became a stag. That was his spirit animal. They're kind of interpreted as their spirit animals. Peter Pettigrew is a rat, and Remus is obviously the werewolf, and Sirius Black is a dog. And this comes up because in the book series, the Harry Potter series, Harry starts seeing a black dog around, and that is in classical literature, in American literature, presumably more global, more universal than that. The black dog is a symbol of death. Crossing a black dog, also a black cat, it has been symbolically associated with death, so it's a bad omen. It's not good luck to be crossing paths or seeing black dogs around. And so Sirius Black was kind of, he was walking around in his dog form, and that is interesting because he escaped from the prison of Azkaban, and that is actually the name of the third Harry Potter book, Escape from Azkaban, I believe. No, it's Prisoners of Azkaban. Oh my gosh, I'm very rusty with my Harry Potter Escape from Azkaban. What is this? Never mind. Prisoners of Azkaban. It was my favorite book. So, of the Harry Potter series. I also, movie-wise, I really liked it as well, even though it kind of strayed from the norms of the first two Harry Potter films. I liked that a lot of people hated the third film because they were wearing normal clothes, and they were, instead of their witch and wizard uniforms, and they were more casual, and I loved it. I thought it was great, and it was different. It was unique, but I appreciated it. I really liked the film as well. But that was my favorite book. I loved the Marauder era of Harry Potter. And so Prisoner of Azkaban is about Sirius Black. And Sirius Black is actually, do you know who Harry Potter is? I'm sure JC Demi does, but I'll talk about it for the general audience. Harry Potter is the chosen one, the one who lived, the boy who killed he who shall not be named, Voldemort. He is known to have, as a baby, defeated the Dark Lord, who is this great, omnipotent, powerful dark wizard, Voldemort, who sold his soul and created Horcruxes with his being in order to preserve his life, which we don't find out in the first X number of books. I'm sorry, I'm giving spoilers. But Harry Potter is the boy who survived this Dark Lord's attack as a child, and saved countless citizens of the country of England and presumably all of Europe, because he had this reign of terror. He had Death Eaters who went around and they would torture people. They had the unforgivable curses in the Harry Potter genre, in the world, the universe. So there were specific spells that were so unethical, they were banned from use in order to protect people by the Ministry of Magic. And so they were considered the unforgivables, and Death Eaters did not care. They would use them. They would torture people, as muggles, especially muggles, but also their fellow wizards and witches. But they were kind of like Hitler, a Hitler-esque society. They wanted the purebloods, and I do apologize, I'm not 100% sure that how canonical, because I think it was argued that even Voldemort, Tom Riddle, was not actually pure blood, but and I'm sorry, I'm not sure how much of this is canonical and how much is like fan fiction. Kind of my recollection is a little skewed, and I do apologize. Read the series, I guess, and then correct me. But he wasn't pure blood. But he's trying to preserve the pure bloodlines, and he's got a lot of Slytherins, which is one of the houses of the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, where Harry Potter and his friends are going to school, um, and being educated by his father James Potter's peers like Severus Snape. And so um, but the Death Eaters are very disrespectful. They want the pure blood line. They want to get rid of all muggles. They like to terrorize people and hurt people. And so the Ministry of Magic is trying to combat them. They've got Aurors, which is like their military forces, these witches and wizards who are there specifically for defensive reasons. So they're called Aurors, and they go out and they try to fight these Death Eaters. So we've got that balance, but so Harry Potter defeated the Dark Lord, in theory sent him to hell, but as it turns out, his Horcruxes, he was able to survive because of his Horcruxes, so his soul kind of snaked out, and that's a little bit of a wink wink spoiler. I'm not going to go through all the plots of all the different books, especially since I can't even remember Escape from Azkaban. It was my favorite Harry Potter book. What's that called again? But no. So I don't want to edit this, so I don't want to lose my train of thought. Okay, but Harry goes to Hogwarts, where his father and his friends went. There are the houses where there's Slytherin, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, and Hufflepuff. And there, he and his friends are mostly all Gryffindor. I believe the same was said of the Marauders. Sirius Black was one of the besties, canonically. He was actually Harry's godfather. So the story is that the Dark Lord was tracking, the families, and he ended up attacking Harry's parents and killing them. So Lily and James died, but their son survived, and they said it was because they protected him at birth, and kind of protected him with a shield of love. And so the only thing that marked Harry upon destroying this evil wizard was his scar, his lightning bolt scar. He was protected in death because his parents, his mother, died for him. And it was her dying wish and her dying hope to save him. And so he was protected. He survived. The Marauders, James perished, and the story there is that they were actually in hiding from the Dark Lord, from Voldemort, because they knew that they were being tracked. They knew that they were in trouble. And so what they did is they made a pact. They made a vow, where they hid their location from society. They had their secret keeper, essentially, who was protecting them, protecting their location from the Dark Lord. And so that way they could stay safe. Only one person would know where they lived as part of the magic. And their secret keeper betrayed them and told where they lived. And so that's how they were found, and they were murdered, because they were betrayed by their inner circle, their inner sanctum, one of their best friends. And the story was that their secret keeper was Sirius Black. And so he got this huge bad rap. He ended up going to prison. He went to Azkaban, which is the wizard's prison, And they have Dementors as the guards, and Dementors are these kind of wistful, black cloaked entities, supernatural creatures that bring sadness. They ooze sadness and they inspire sadness. And like the closer they get to you, the worse you feel. And so it's um, a psychological thing where they are and manifest sadness and darkness. And so they are the guards. And if you try to escape, then they kiss you. And they call it the Dementor's kiss, where they kiss you and then it essentially sucks all of the happiness and the good out of your body, and then I think you die with the Dementor's kiss. So you cannot escape virtually because they are supernatural entities. They can kind of float and fly. There are spells that you can kind of try and counter them a little bit, but in the right numbers, it's they suck all of the good out of your existence, out of your body, and so it with the kiss. And so Sirius Black went to prison for divulging James and Lily's secret. However, we find out that it was not actually him. It was their other best friend, Peter Pettigrew. Peter Pettigrew, and that kind of lines up with, biblical Peter, and also with his animagus being the rat. Because that is his soul. He didn't stand up for his friends. He sold them out for the Dark Lord. He turned to the dark side, essentially, and he became evil. He became he was a spineless, gutless D-bag, and he betrayed his friend, and then they were murdered by these large evil entities. And but Sirius Black was actually innocent, and so he went to this prison where they were literally sucking the good out of him and sucking the life out of him, but he didn't actually do anything wrong. He lost his best friends in that, and it was because of Peter Pettigrew and not because of him. So just all around suckage for him as a character, but he actually does end up escaping. He ends up turning into his dog form, and he escapes, and then he lives in the countryside. And I can't remember exactly how he gets introduced into the series, officially in the Harry Potter universe, in his era, in his time. Because there's a little bit of time travel. They find the Whomping Willow, and then with the car hits the Whomping Willow in the second book and movie, and then so they introduce the Whomping Willow canonically, and it's at the top of the secret hiding place where Remus would go. I think you had to just touch one of the knots to stop the Whomping Willow from whomping. And so Remus ends up going, and I apologize, I read a lot of fan fiction, and it's been so long, so it's kind of blurring. But then they go into underneath the Whomping Willow, and there's a house, and that was supposed to be where he would transform and be a werewolf. But since he had his friends to help protect him, he wasn't condemned and forced to stay in this house. But then that's kind of where, I think that's where James would, or no, not James, sorry, Sirius would stay to stay safe. So I think he was around the Hogwarts campus a little bit, maybe Hogsmeade. So then he and Harry do actually meet, and Harry, who lost his parents, he's been alone. He's adopted by the Dursleys, who are, they are abusive. They're they neglect him. They keep him under the staircase in the closet underneath the stairs, and so he has kind of a terrible quality of life um, with Vernon, Petunia, and Dudley, his brother, half brother. It's actually they're actually, I think, Lily's family technically, and there's a bunch of fan fiction for that also. how that the relationships transpired. They hated that Lily was magical, and they condemned her, and that's one theory, is that Petunia also was magical, was also argued in other fan theory. She was actually magical, but she fell in love with Vernon, and you can just find fan fiction where their love story, and they are trying to protect Harry by abusing him and keeping him hidden, and from being discovered again by the Dark Lord if the Dark Lord rose again. So there's a bunch of fan theories as to, if maybe they actually weren't as bad as all that, and because they were mean, they were bad, and but so it's super triumphant that Harry finds Sirius Black, his godfather, an actual best friend, someone who knew his parents, who were friends with his, they were friends, and they were able to, he was kind of able to give him his father figure, his father again. And so it was so important and so cool that they were able to find each other and be together. And then that book was actually really cool, the Prisoner of Azkaban, because it kind of went through the Marauder era a little bit. We got a little more backstory after the Mirror of Erised and seeing the Sorcerer's Stone and getting it in his pocket, and then we got to see his parents briefly, and so it was cool to the next book to actually meet some of the friends, and Remus, of course, was a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher professor, which was constantly fluctuating throughout the series, with Professor Lockhart, Quirrell, and so it was fluctuating. But Remus Lupin was kind of the sensitive guy, the sensitive new age guy, and of course he also happened to be a werewolf. And then Sirius, this is kind of how they were depicting him in fan fiction era as well. Like in the movies, he was a responsible, quiet, but intelligent man, but in the fan fiction, he was the sweetheart, he was a sweetie, everybody loved him, he was, quiet, but he was nice, kind, and and so fan theory also had Sirius as kind of, they were marauders, and so their whole thing was they were trying to find freedom in the halls of Hogwarts, and so they were dodging prefects, the people who enabled the rules and regulations of Hogwarts, and so they would kind of dodge the rule followers and the rule enforcers, and roam the halls at night, and get food from the kitchens, and then fan theory takes it, and so exactly which portrait you have to like tickle the grapes or something, and then and to sneak into the kitchens, and we have Dobby in the actual canonical series of the house elf, and who I believe did work in the Hogwarts kitchens briefly, if I'm not mistaken. Again, the fan fiction and the real canon are blurring, and so, but I do believe there is a scene of him in the kitchens or referencing kitchens, but we call him Dobby. I think that was canonical with the movies as well. It was one thing with the books versus the movies, like Hermione. We definitely did not pronounce that correctly when we were first reading the books. It was definitely different. And so it was good in book 4 when Victor Crumb came from a different country and she had to say, no, this is how you say it, Hermione. Because I don't know that anybody knew. But Hermione is one of Harry Potter's friends with Ron and Ronald Weasley of the Weasley Burrow. But she is not she is of I can't remember if she was pure Muggle, if her family was pure Muggle, or if one of her parents was Muggle. And this is canonical. This is part of the series, and I can't remember, and I do apologize. And I think one of them was dentist. So, and that's just weird, random. And again, I don't know how much is fan fiction. um, but no, she's the know-it-all, and whereas Harry is brave and also very loyal, Ron is kind of the whiner and kind of a little snivelly. So he might be kind of Peter Pettigrew-ish, actually, which I never thought, because he gets jealous and he's insecure because Harry's so cool. He's the boy who lived, and um, but that's, so they discuss dynamics like that in the story of, having a famous friend and trying to balance popularity and schoolwork, but popularity and friendship. Because Harry is obviously, he's the main protagonist, and so he's always getting selected for special things of like the Triwizard Tournament, and then he ends up fighting off a basilisk, and all sorts of shenanigans, things like that, and he ends up but he goes to the Quidditch match, but I think that he went with the Weasleys for that. So but but he makes the Quidditch team, and things like that, and so he gets the snitch, and so he's just an overall very talented guy, and Ron doesn't seem to have any talents whatsoever. But he's a ginger, and he's got a great family. So he's got a family life, yay. And but um but back to the Marauders. Sirius ends up kind of taking on a fatherly role, and we all ship it. It's so good. It's so good for Harry. It's great for Sirius too. In fan fiction, he's such a stud. He's like popular, a little like he's a smartass. He's kind of clever, and he knows it. And James too. But Sirius is kind of the ladies' man, is how a lot of the fan fiction goes on. And James, though canonically James was arrogant, and he was being cruel to Severus Snape, and so I don't see why he would be likable, because he was discriminating. He was a bully to Snape, but somehow he ends up with Lily Evans and has the kid, the boy who lived, the one who defeats the Dark Lord when he's kind of mean. And but I don't, I don't know. I didn't like that element of it, and so a lot of the fan fiction was just like, oh, that wasn't representative at all. That wasn't, no, 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 no. And other, they try and like gloss over that a little bit, because, and then of course there's a spoiler that Severus Snape was actually in love with Lily Evans, and always is the big fandom thing with Severus Snape, and so he hated Harry, because his father not only was a huge bully to him, but he was actually in love with Lily. And I don't care for that canonical storyline at all either. I don't want him to have been in love. Unreciprocated love stories. Ugh. I don't like that. So, he was the potions master. He was kind of mean. He's from Slytherin, and that's actually something that was addressed in fan fiction as well, where Slytherin was kind of deemed the house that was more likely to be Death Eaters, the ones who are most likely to be evil, to become evil, and that can, and so some of the fan fictions would be like fighting that stereotype and trying to reduce the stigma or the discrimination that would come with being in the House of Slytherin. because they suggest the connotations are there of being greedy, and power hungry. And so, and I don't actually recall canonically what human traits the Sorting Hat finds in that house, and I can't recall. I know Hufflepuff is friendliness, and Ravenclaw is intelligence, and Gryffindor is I think courage and loyalty. But I can't remember Slytherin for some reason, and I don't know if it's. But one of my favorite fan fictions actually tackles an inner relationship between Gryffindor and Slytherin after Lily. It follows Lily. She loses her friends, and so she just briefly, or actually I don't remember the storyline there. But she, I think she just makes this friend from Slytherin, and I won't go in too much about it because fan fiction is fan fiction and it's separate. But it tackles that dynamic too, so that's good. And they kind of have elements of that in Draco. I can't remember exactly what happens canonically there, but in a lot of fan fiction too, they'd make Draco Malfoy of the Malfoy clan. He's the main antagonist of, like, on school level. He's the baddie that they're combating. He's the name. He's the face of the counter culture for the Gryffindors. So definitely the big Quidditch rivalry, except I think they said that is, like, they paid for him to be on the team or something. He had to glad hand a couple of people to get on the team, I think. But yeah, so we have Sirius Black. He's a pivotal character. He's great for Harry, but he has to stay in hiding. The third book has a scenario where he is caught by the Dementors, who are trying to find him after his escape from the prison of Azkaban, and then they're trying to perform the kiss, and then there's time traveling involved, and it's time travel magic, which is super cool. I love time travel. And so I could do that reminded me of another character that I could look into, but that character wouldn't be a villain. So, but I mean, technically, and that might be something worth looking at too, because Sirius Black is technically an escaped convict, but he's not actually the villain. He's not actually the criminal, but we think he is, briefly, and then he's in hiding, and he's treated like a criminal still, because they haven't publicly cleared his name, and then he serves as an advocate for Harry. They figure out the magic so they can talk in the fireplaces. So his head is in the fireplace, and then Harry can talk at the fireplace and get information from him, because there's also a prophecy involving Harry Potter, the chosen one, although the verbiage allows a little bit of room for interpretation as to whether or not it is actually Harry. And fan fiction definitely explored that. The prophecy, and how it actually was meant to go down, how it was meant to happen, where it maybe wasn't Harry Potter, and then unfortunately there's a mistake. Someone sends a false message to Harry, and it's not actually from Sirius Black. It is a decoy message. It's a trap, and so he ends up falling into this trap, and Sirius Black ends up, like, coming to save him, and he ends up getting murdered. And that is the book that I said I would never read again. I'm never reading it again. How dare they? How, you know, I was very upset. So I would never. I haven't read the seventh book again after finishing it that one time. I believe it was the seventh book. Maybe it was the fifth book. Oh no, they're gonna have me reading the fifth book and Sirius is gonna die. You're like, no, why did I think seven? Then I'm gonna read it again and just be so upset with myself. I think it is 5 because it's Triwizard Tournament. I think it's the fifth book. I'm actually, now that I'm so out of the rhetoric, but I was watching a video the other day on a Harry Potter video from the film came on my timeline, and it had Lavender Brown, I think, when she was in love with Ron Weasley, or was it Lavender? And I had forgotten about that entire drama, and so I just like looked at it and I didn't think about it. I was like, oh, that's Luna Lovegood, and so I posted on Facebook and they're like, that's not Luna. So I was like, oh no. I'm out of the loop, and so that's terrible because I was like, I'm never reading the book again if Sirius Black shouldn't have died, and you know, Bellatrix Lestrange, and you know, however, and so there are some spoilers after all. I apologize. I won't tell you the specifics on it, except I sort of did. But I was so upset. And but you know, we finished the rest of the series, and I don't know that I forgave Harry. I was like, I blamed him because I was like, you should have double checked. Why couldn't you have, it wasn't, you had to have known that it was, why were you so angry? And then so I blamed his high school angst and like forgetting Sirius Black killed as a character. It's like, no, I don't like that. But so that is a thing. But otherwise, the fan fiction for the Harry Potter universe is great. It is very dynamic in what it covers. There are obviously musicals written for it, about it, and and you know, just a whole bunch of fan videos with, you know, different character names referenced, and it's a whole, you know, obviously it's a world at Disney as well, so it's a big one. But yeah, Sirius Black, super cool character. He wasn't actually the bad guy, but he could still be considered a villain to a certain degree, just given that he was an escaped convict. And I just wanted to fit because I wanted to make this video for my friend JC Demi, who does villain videos. The real villain was Peter Pettigrew, because he didn't have the wherewithal to protect his friends. How dare he? He betrayed one of his best friends. So, not cool, not okay. And he lived longer, and he lived as a rat. Spoilers. And not cute. Peter Pettigrew, not cute. So with that, I think I am going to wrap up this video. But he was one of my favorites. The Marauders are great characters. You gotta love the bromance, the good chemistry of a group of friends. It's always fun to read about, and it's always fun to, they had the Marauders map. And I can't believe I didn't mention that, because I was saying they were sneaking around the castle, but they had their map, and it showed they had figured out the magic where they could find, and this is, I don't know that anybody, you know, who would click into this video doesn't know the plot. They're probably going to click into this and they're going to be experts, and they're going to be like, why did I watch this video? This person can't tell the fan fiction from the canon. This is terrible. Thank you for wasting my time by telling me plot basics 101. But yeah, so, but it's cool. They created this map where they found out the magic to track the goings on in the castle so they could see the footprints of where people were, so they could um, miss the prefects, the ones that were trying to maintain order and like send you back to your dorm if you're out after hours. Um, so it helped them sneak around, and that's another plot point, and that's relevant to the book series. They would say, in order to get into the map and to clear the map, they would say, "I solemnly swear I am up to no good." And I'm hoping they were the good guys, and so I don't think that they were as mean as might be implied, but maybe an inside joke. But I think the agreeability and level of um, no good that they got up to is highly debatable. And again, I would not forgive them for being such bullies to Severus Snape, like hanging him upside down and having everything fall out of his pockets. I think that that's too far. And of course, it's the magic world, but I still think that's way too far. Of course, that even like in like movies and books from my parents' era, though, it was commonplace to see bullies, you know, like give swirlies and things like that. But those bullies aren't the good guys, and so you don't want like James and the Marauders to be that level of bully, because that's inexcusable. That's not something um, that you want to see in the good, in the protagonists. So, and maybe that's a little villainous too. Um, but they still, the fan fiction kind of whitewashed that a bit more and was like, oh no, that's not who they are at all. And they just like ignored all the bullying. Like, it might mention like, Severus Snape was, I mean, was also kind of mean, is generally the interpretation, if they even bring Snape up. And like he was mean, and so bullying, a lot of the fan fiction didn't jive with that part of the canon. And so that's something to look at too, because I think that is something that, especially in the modern era, in this day and age, what level of that I've seen a kind of a recurrence of that mentality of an eye for an eye. And some people argue that you can't stop like behaviors without meeting that person with comparable behaviors, so that way they can recognize that it's wrong, that they are wrong. But if they don't see the parallels, or if they don't know that they're doing that, it doesn't really work if you behave like that. um, but wizard duels are also a thing in the Harry Potter universe, and using spells, and a lot of like mean spells like jelly legs or the lock leg spell, and the that is common in the, like, they learn how to duel in the books, and versus not using the unforgivables, using commonplace, and then you just go to the magic, um, the healers, to get the magic to stop that from happening. And there's some other cool fan fiction about magical healing and wordless magic, and but there was a specific fan fiction that I'm thinking of. And if you went to high school with me, then maybe potentially it was passed around the table, not the table, the table, that I'm referencing, that I'm not explaining, but a different table. It was passed around as like a fan fiction of, some things like books you pass around, and you like reference musicals and things, but it's not always that it'll be fan fiction. But this specific fan fiction we shared. So there were two fan fictions that were the big ones, I think, in high school. So for that particular friend group, and so, gosh, I'm trying to figure out how, because um I'm trying to figure out who I sat with at the lunch tables um, for those lunch periods, because I remember my sister's friends being there, and then I don't remember where you know, why exactly, like I wasn't staying with my own friends, if maybe the table was full. I don't know, but I was hanging out with my sister. Good talk. But again, it's my sister's rhetoric. But I am fluent, except for the canon to fan fiction divide. She is the true fan, um, and probably has read all of the books more than I have, of course, like 26 times of the first book alone, and she had to get another copy because it was so worn, and she would never mind. but but never mind, never mind. But anyway, that is Harry Potter and the Harry Potter universe. Sirius Black's character, brief synopsis of that as a universe and with the public engagement in that universe. It was beloved, and I have not really seen anything like that since. There have been a few big ones, but it was wholesome, and it was about friends and friends coming together, and I think that was really good and very important. It was also set in an educational setting, which I think was relatable to us at that age, because we went to school together, in that institution, in that setting. We went to the public school system, so it was with the teachers and, a traditional format setting. And so that was good to have that series when we were growing up. But yeah, it was big. It was very big. We would quote from it. Um, so, but if that was a long, long time ago, and Nicole has dibs. So, my sister has dibs. So, I like it, but it's hers. So, with that, I'm going to stop, and I will talk to you later. Okay, bye.